Hi, Judy, will you come forward, please? So this is Judy Arnold Hunter. She is a member of Spectrum, and she will grace us with an opening song. Thank you.
Joining us for flight. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountains' majesty.
Known as America. We pray that you guide America in a way that points it towards justice, righteousness, and fairness for all who grace her shores. Stand by her, Father, and guide her just like the song that we just heard, because America, the whole idea of America is a wonderful thing. So protect her, protect us, protect all of our rights, and let freedom ring. Amen.
Amen.
You know, it's events like this that are absolutely the best use of this atrium space here in City Hall. On the weekend of Veterans Day, we honor and we celebrate veterans that have served and fought the United States Armed Forces for all of us. As we do that, it's important for us to remember that not all the veterans that fought for us returned to this country to the celebration and honor to which they were due.
So it's important for us to recognize and to even belatedly measure and proclaim that celebration and that honor. A week ago, I was at the airport, and there was one of the honor flight trips. I've been on one of those, and quite frankly, it was one of the most impactful weekends that I've ever had. 36 hours. In part because my father was a World War II vet. He was a disabled vet. He died when I was 21.
And being with the vets in this community in some ways takes me back to being with my dad. So it's important to me. That's why in this city we identified getting to net effective zero with veterans homelessness as one of our highest priorities, and did what it took for us to be able to achieve that.
But in the airport this past weekend, this honor flight was special. in that everybody who was participating in that honor flight was an African American veteran. One from World War II, some from the Korean War, and also from Vietnam. That makes this Veterans Day even more special than other Veterans Days. This celebration and making sure that we're recognizing everyone that fought for us makes this a special celebration. And I'll tell you one more thing that makes this Veterans Day special here in this city. Our Veterans Day parade is not a parade that is a city or county function. It's a private parade. By that I mean the VF, Veterans of Foreign War. One of them does the parade and we all participate in it. But for decades, as people would sign up to participate, one of the groups that always participated in the Veterans Day parade here on Congress Avenue were the folks that marched in that parade with Confederate flags as part of the sons and daughters of the Confederacy. I tried really hard to change that my first 2 years as mayor because it seemed to me that as clear as the sun comes up in the morning, that's an inappropriate thing to have in a Veterans Day parade. But I couldn't figure out how to change that since it wasn't a city function. And because we all know that under the First Amendment, everybody has a right to do what they can, want to, and sometimes the city has to give permits to things that are objectionable. Last year, I started boycotting the parade and urged everybody to go help give meals down to vets. But that didn't feel right either because I don't want people not to be able to participate in the Veterans Day parade. So we redoubled our efforts, worked with our legal staff. I just want you to know that I'm going to be proudly marching in the Veterans Day parade this Sunday at 9 o'clock. Yeah. And there will not be a Confederate flag in that parade for the first time in decades. These guys, the Hellfighters, they weren't officially known as the Hellfighters. They were the Harlem Rattlers was their official designation. But the Germans did not think that was a fierce enough designation to reflect these men that were fighting, and they became the Hellfighters, and that's how we know them today. We have two of these fighters that have been buried here in Austin, and that becomes one of our connections. I really appreciate having this art brought into this place so that we can give these men the honor to which they are due. I appreciate everybody being here to be part of it. Thank you.
One second.
We have a cigar maker here in the city of Austin by the name of Babalu. Babalu surprised us the other day by creating a special Harlem Hellfighter cigar, which I understand is one of their best, they told me. So I would like to present you with a Harlem Hellfighter cigar. Thank you so very much. So, moving on, I would like to call the representative from the 100 Black Men of Austin to come forth and say a few words. Excuse me, brother, please introduce yourself.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, great.
I hope everybody's having a good evening. My name is Dion Wilhite. I'm here representing Carl Spencer on behalf of the 100 Black Men of Austin. And I'm glad to stand here as a representative of 100 Black Men to salute these black men. Now, anybody who knows me knows I'm a big bookworm. If I wasn't here, I'd be at one of the bookstores, a library, or half-price books. I was at half-price books last night, and I went to the military section, and they had a section that Civil War, rows and rows of books. World War II, rows and rows of books. World War I, one row. And you sure didn't see the information about these guys. It may have been contained in some of the books, but that history is not well known. You know, even me as a bookworm, I didn't know much about World War I. When I was growing up in Black history books, I would see pictures of these guys marching down in Harlem in their uniforms after World War I, but I really didn't know who they were. Then I remember reading this novel a few years back. It was called Standing at the Scratch Line. And the hero of the novel was a veteran of the Harlem Hellfighters. And the first part of the book deals with his experiences in France as a member of the Harlem Hellfighters, and the hell of combat, the racism they faced from their white counterparts. And it was just fascinating. That opened the door for me to read as much as I could about the Hellfighters in World War I. One thing I can tell you, World War I was horrific. The things these guys faced were just, it's unimaginable. Not only did they have to face combat against the Germans, but they had to face literally homicide from their own soldiers, their white counterparts. It was bad. But they went through it, and they prevailed. The French gave them all kind of awards. There was a guy named, I don't want to give the history, but there was a guy named Henry Johnson. I think he held off 24 Germans by himself. There was Jim Reese Europe. He was a band leader that came out of World War I. He was a Harlem Hellfighter. It's a fascinating history. So I just encourage everybody to read as much as you can about it, because these guys were just, they were some awesome men. They believed in America, even though America didn't believe in them, and read about some things that happened to them after they came back. You want to know why all those riots occurred in 1917 and 1918? These guys just didn't want to take the same treatment that they had received before they went to war, that they got afterwards. So please read as much as you can about the Harlem Hellfighters. They were some awesome, awesome Black men who fought for this country. The French gave them a chance, even though General Pershing didn't know what to do with them. He said, hey, you guys, y'all do something with them. The French knew what to do. They put them in action, and these guys proved themselves. So thank you for coming here. Thank you for the salute, Brother Towery. Thank you for even putting this on, because it's amazing that somebody's presenting this. Oh, I'm supposed to read this. I didn't bring my glasses, so here we go. Whereas Ted Ellis, an internationally known artist whose works have been, I'm sorry, I didn't bring my glasses, have been, who has their glasses here to read this for me? Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, yes. Whereas Ted Ellis, thank you, Judy, I appreciate you. Whereas Ted Ellis is an internationally known artist whose works have been sold around the world, and who cares and has a commitment to people from all communities, and especially communities of color. Whereas Ted Ellis has dedicated his life to capturing the Black diaspora and culture in America and elsewhere, depicting them in world-known art paintings. Whereas Ted Ellis has shared his art and his commitment to honoring the Harlem Hellfighters by creating a painting that depicts one of the most famous Harlem Hellfighters of all, Sergeant Henry Johnson. Whereas Ted Ellis decided to give a world premiere of this wonderful artwork here in the city of Austin, thank you, Brother Ellis, at City Hall for the residents of our wonderful city. Be it resolved that the 100 Black Men of Austin organization, after due consideration, has decided to add Mr. Ted Ellis to our roles as an honorary member of the organization for perpetuity. That means forever. That all in Austin be known that Ted Ellis is a brother and member of the 100 Black Men of Austin organization on this 8th day of November 2018, signed by Carl Spencer, President, 100 Black Men of Austin.
All right.
Got it?
Oh, take people off. Okay.
Right there, she got it right there. Dr. Lila Rakosi.
Thank you. I'm impressed that I got my last name correct there. So I'm scheduled on the program to talk about a brief history of African Americans in World War I. Such a task is really, I would argue, not possible in the short time allotted. What I would like to do is encourage you this Sunday for Veterans Day. This will be the 100th anniversary of the armistice. But I would also encourage you to remember this centennial through June of 2019. We're actually observing this centennial through to the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. And there are a lot more stories to be told beyond just this Sunday. So if you'll, I'm impressed that I got my last name correct there. So I'm scheduled on the program to talk about a brief history of African Americans in World War I. Such a task is really, I would argue, not possible in the short time allotted. What I would like to do is encourage you, those of you gathered here today, if you haven't already, to take a look at some of the literature on the table produced by my agency, the Texas Historical Commission. We have tried to address the World War I centennial, which, as you know, the high water mark will be happening this Sunday for Veterans Day. This will be the 100th anniversary of the armistice. But I would also encourage you to remember this centennial through June of 2019. We're actually observing this centennial through to the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. And there are a lot more stories to be told beyond just this Sunday. So if you'll forgive me, I've got a few prepared remarks that I will just share. Over 30,000 African American Texans served in the First World War. Like their fellow white Texans, that service took many forms. Many toiled in labor and service battalions or at French ports in stevedore regiments. Some were couriers ferrying important messages near the front, or mechanics who kept vital equipment working. They worked in medical and veterinary units, keeping men and horses alive. They baked, they dug graves, they cut the wood that repaired railway lines, keeping the advancing armies supplied. A small number served in the U.S. Navy, and some fought. Hundreds of black men hailing from all over the Lone Star State served in the segregated combat units which made up the 92nd and 93rd Infantry Divisions. In 1917, they had been teachers and students, agricultural and day laborers, porters, lumbermen, and white-collar professionals. In the months that followed, they would find themselves manning machine gun nests, commanding men, and attacking heavily defended positions in the Argonne Forest of France. Nearly every county in Texas had young African-American men, not just at the front, but at the front in arms. The price they paid was a steep one. And just to share with you one example from rural Washington County, of the 15 men from Washington County who served in the famous 369th Infantry Regiment, or Harlem Hellfighters, showcased in this wonderful exhibit, 1/3 were killed in action or severely wounded. And just to share with you a side anecdote, when I first started my own research on African Americans from East Texas who served, I remember corresponding with a member of an organization that shall go unnamed, and this individual wrote to me and said, "You won't find a single African American from this county who served in a combat role." And within 5 minutes, I had sent him a military service card of a man from his county who not only served, but had been killed in action. So we still have a lot of work to do educating people on the role of African Americans from Texas in World War I. As we approach November 11th, the 100th anniversary of the armistice that silenced the guns of the Western Front, it is worth taking a moment to reflect on what World War I should mean to all of us. Over 116,000 Americans lost their lives, more than the Korean and Vietnam conflicts combined. 26,000 alone died in action in the Meuse-Argonne offensive, which took place in the last 6 weeks of the war. Over 200,000 Americans came home with wounds and disabilities, with an unknown more carrying with them the invisible scars of war. African Americans bore the additional brunt of returning to an America not ready to accept, let alone praise, a black man in uniform. The summer of 1919, when most American soldiers were demobilized and sent home, would become known as the Red Summer. for the violence that was unleashed against not just returning African American servicemen, but against African American communities at home who had sacrificed so much for the war effort. It is entirely appropriate that we take moments like this to remember what we have forgotten. The Black Warriors of World War I exhibit asks us to think about not only the sacrifices of Americans and Texans who experienced the Great War, but to linger on the experiences of men who fought a double war, one against the Central Powers in Europe and one for equality at home. As the great W.E.B. Du Bois said at the time, we return from fighting, we return fighting. Make way for democracy. We saved it in France, and by the great Jehovah, we will save it in the United States of America or know the reason why. On behalf of the Texas Historical Commission, I'd like to encourage you to keep the World War I in your thoughts this Veterans Day. For some, that might mean attending a centennial event in your community or listening to bells toll in your community as part of the National Bells of Peace initiative. For others, it might take the form of quiet reflection, paying respects in a cemetery, or seeking out information on how the war affected your own family or community. Whatever you choose to do, we hope that you will carry it forward as we continue to commemorate this centennial through June of 2019. There is much still to remember. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to bring up a gentleman who I have a lot of respect for, especially as it regards art. He's a person, I think, one of the most knowledgeable men in the city as it regards art. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Executive Director of the George Washington Carver Museum, Mr. Bamidele Emerson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, no. This is a good evening.
Yes,
we're
it
all
is.
smiling, we're all here, we're all alive and well.
Yes.
So let me say again, good evening.
Good evening.
All right. It's a good evening because we're here to celebrate a special group of people. And so it is a good evening. You know, my remarks are titled, Preserving Black History Using Art. But that's such a long title. And so I left my 500-page paper at home. and so I'm going to focus on the subtitle of that. Thank you for heroic narratives of unheralded patriots. I really do want to thank these gentlemen for the art that they have created.
Yes.
In Austin, as around the country, we observe the centennial of World War I. Today, as over the course of the past 100 years of the United States, authors have written articles and books, editors have assembled and published photographic essays, citizens have erected monuments and orchestrated public celebrations, teachers have imparted lessons to students, and curators have developed exhibitions for their museum audiences. The connecting threads in all these efforts is a collective account how members of the military, with valor and with honor, played a role in shaping freedom and democracy across the globe. A vast majority of the aforementioned initiatives reiterate stories that neglect the African American presence in the United States military. But now we have Black Warriors of World War I, the Harlem Hellfighters, an exhibition featuring paintings by Glenn Towery and Ted Ellis. We are also grateful for Towery and Ellis, as well as visual artists across the country, who are committed to researching and creating images that convey heroic narratives of unheralded patriots. Artists help us fill in the missing pages of the history books. We gain a more nuanced understanding of the motivations of African Americans, barely 5 decades removed from slavery, who made the decision to serve their country, even when the nation seemed unappreciative of their commitments. We learn to appreciate the efforts of these patriots. These patriots put forth to simply be part of the body politic. We are enriched by exploring the complex dynamic in which they had to fight 2 wars, one for freedom and democracy abroad, and one for freedom and democracy denied at home. So I thank the artists for exercising their sense of agency. I'll say that again. I thank the artists for exercising their sense of agency. They're not just talented men, but they are artists with a voice. And so I thank them for their sense of agency in boldly bringing forth heroic narratives of unheralded patriots. I thank you for pushing into relief chronicles that have not been recognized, chronicles that have not been understood, chronicles that have not been appreciated, and chronicles that have not been popularized. With your creative boldness, you have moved us forward toward answering many unresolved questions. But I thank you for doing something far more. That is to say, your images of the African American presence during World War I have caused us to question answers that we thought we knew, that we thought were accurate, that we thought were complete. Yes, there are questions to be answered, but there are also questions to be answered. And I thank the artists for doing that for us. I close by noting that there is a human need to remember those who champion our values, share our worldview, understand our history, carry forth our struggles, inspire our youth, and protect our communities and society. This exhibition should remind each of us that there are narratives in our collective history that we do not know. The very halls of government are most appropriate places to correctively add missing chapters of our culture history. Thank you to the City of Austin, and thank you again to the artists. This exhibition, providing heroic narratives of unheralded patriots, can teach us. This learning opportunity can improve our cultural literacy. This installation of art can heighten our cultural competency quotient. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but several images constitute an engaging essay. But these paintings, through which we bear witness to history, are the beginnings of an encyclopedia of visual images worth far more than thousands upon thousands of words. Such images constitute the medicine, the cure, the antidote for our cultural and indeed our historical amnesia. Without question, I encourage everyone to come see and experience Black warriors of World War I, the Harlem Hellfighters. We must never forget the 369th Infantry, formerly known as the 15th New York Colored Regiment. They were the torchbearers of liberty, and I thank the torch-bearing artists for bringing exposure to their stories. Thank you so very much.
Terry?
Yeah, okay. He didn't tell me it was on the agenda. So about a year ago, Bob Ward asked us if we had any list of World War I veterans in the city cemeteries. We had nothing. The other person who was with me said, that's not really going to be possible. But we started researching and digging over the last 9 months. We found over 2,000 so far. When we were looking into the list at Evergreen Cemetery, I came across one that said 369th Infantry. And being with people like Glenn, I'm like, oh, that's the Harlem Hellfighters. How can a man from Austin have been part of that? So that was the first. And then I found 4 more at Evergreen. I found an additional 3 that are from Austin. So this list at the top are 7 of those men that were from Austin that were part of the infantry. That's just the start. Then I met Ted, and I really got into it. I said, well, who's part of it that actually sacrificed their lives as part of it? So far, we found about 30 men who were from Texas who died, killed in action, or died of wounds, or died of disease. And those are listed here. These are some of the men that sacrificed their lives for us. We're continuing to do the research, and hopefully we'll find out the rest of those men, or as many as we can, who served as part of the 369th from Texas. There's several hundred, and we're still working on it. And Lila spoke earlier, they found 65 from East Texas, where she has the passion. Now we're trying to figure out who the rest of those been. So we'll continue working on that and share that information once it's available. But once you meet someone like Glenn and Ted, it's infectious. You can't stop looking into this. Thank you.
Say that. He is a renowned artist, and his work can be found probably on almost every corner of the planet. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you my friend and buddy, Mr. Ted Ellis.
This is such an honor and privilege because, I'm an artist and I'm living my passion. And on top of that, you couple your passion with purpose and, wonderful things happen. I went to Dillon University, graduated as a chemist major. And my professor always said, there's two components, A and B, and you look for C. More than likely, you get a byproduct D that's better than what you expected. And that has been my journey as an artist. This opportunity is better than what I expected. Glenn and myself met, about 4 months ago. We were at the Buffalo Soldier Museum. The exhibition was Missing in Action. It was celebrating African Americans who had served in the military. And I saw Glenn, watched Glenn. Juanita was there. Glenn had an opportunity to speak, and I saw his conviction and his passion for service to community and to veterans. And, we shared information. We stayed in touch. He called me up, and he said, Ted, I'm putting on a Black Warriors exhibition, and I need your participation. I said, wow, this is incredible. I said, I would love to. And he said, okay, I'm going to include you in the exhibition. Maybe 2 weeks later, I kind of called Glenn up, and I said, Glenn, my plate is full. I don't know if I'm going to be able to commit to, make it happen. I said, I'm just overwhelmed. Part of my responsibility, I just jumped into graduate school, so I got a full load in museum studies, so we're writing constantly, and I had a couple other obligations. But I thought about the servicemen, the veterans. I thought about the 54th Regiment, Massachusetts Regiment. I thought about the Buffalo Soldiers. I thought about the Tuskegee Airmen, and I didn't make any excuses. They decided to serve the country unselfishly, put their life on the line. And like Professor Dimerson said, they fought 2 wars. One of injustice, one of equality, and one for liberation against other ills that America was faced against. So I committed, and I immersed myself as much as I could in the wonderful history of the 369th, the New York Regiment in New York. The 369th probably had more casualties during World War I than any other. Over 1,500 lives were lost, in the trenches. The peace, emergence of an American hero, Sergeant Henry Johnson, is an example, one of the examples of putting his life on the line. Think about it, the eerie night in a foxhole, and you hear barbed wire being cut, and you're in there with another infantryman, and you said, young man, get out of the way, get out of harm's way. I'm gonna manage this opportunity as best I could. And he availed himself, and he put himself in harm's way. He was injured. He fought against, I want to say, to the capacity of 30 Germans. He killed 4 of them in that foxhole. He received the name of Black Death, and that's in that piece. The other representation I have in here, you see him standing, attention, in service to the country, bold, strong. His history is that he's from Albany, New York. He was a Pullman porter. He was an educated man. Right here with the devices on to show that commitment to this country. But you have to imagine the strength, the will, the conviction to put yourself in position. The professor talked earlier about, we primarily work in the supply chain. We're there to bring food and materials and so forth. But these men decided we're so much more than that. We need to be given this opportunity to fight for our country, a country that has been unjust to us. And we fight to this day. These men all received the poured the draw, Medal of Honor for France. That was the first Medal of Honor that they received. His time in service being wounded, it was 77 years later that he received the Purple Heart. 97 years later until he received the Medal of Honor from this wonderful country. Now, I think about that. I think about the servicemen who are serving right now, who are diligent to country. We owe a debt of gratitude to all of our servicemen and servicewomen throughout the United States military because they unselfishly put their life on the line, just the way Sergeant Johnson, Sergeant Johnson did. So this was my piece that I did. Each one of these pieces are wonderful pieces that represent the 369th, the black rappers, the men of bronze, that the French called them. The Germans called them Hellfighters because they fought. They were there when General Pershing put forth that major initiative when they decided to end the war. Those guys were there in that foxhole for the majority of that time that they spent. Now the hardest fight, that wasn't the hardest fight. The toughest challenge was when they came home. And they had to face that kind of indignation. They had to have their own ceremony in Harlem. I never understood that, but now I know. It is so critically important that we embrace our history. We share our history. We heal from history. We become better. We put ourselves in service to humanity. Just the way these soldiers have done in the past and how they do and what they're doing right now in the future. The good news is that we continue to be better because of who we are and what we've experienced and what we're doing. Where's Glenn at?
Right here.
Glenn, thank you for your service. You know, your continued service, you know, beyond the uniform and making us better, making me better. And I appreciate our friendship, our growing friendship. We have another opportunity of engagement. The African American Military Museum has opened up an opportunity for the exhibit to travel as well. And I'm excited about that. I'm going to reach out to the state capitol and see if we can also have the exhibition there sometime next year as well, so that our veterans can have a voice, that history can be told. Finally, Demerson did an excellent verbal narrative on illustrating the importance of African Americans in service to country and a responsibility and role that artists have in having that visual narrative as well. I appreciate that. I appreciate this opportunity of being here. 100 Black Men, I hope to represent you well as I go and I travel. In closing, I'd like to share with you one other thing that has happened, and that where I talked about that A and B opportunity in chemistry, and more than likely you get that byproduct B. A little bit more than 9 months ago, I was vetted and asked to be part of this commission. It came to fruition. In 2 weeks, I was notified through the Department of Interior and the National Parks that I'm on the National Committee for the celebration of the 400th commemorative celebration of 1619. We've been here 400 years in service to our country, and we have a responsibility in bringing that narrative forward next year. I'm going to need your participation and help and counsel and direction in that celebration of our advancement as a collective. So, you know, one does not exist without the other. We're not in a vacuum. So this is Ted Ellis. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending this wonderful acknowledgement of the men of service who have given their time and their lives to this great country. Thank you.
Some stories or some insights into his father. Please welcome Mr. Eddie Harrison.
Appreciate that. But I know he would really appreciate it more because I heard him talk about his experiences and the reaction that he received from it. He was a young man who grew up in a little town called Mount Selvin, Texas, up in Smith County, Texas, East Texas. And when he left there, he left because he got drafted into the Army. Down to San Antonio, Texas. He gets to San Antonio, Texas, and he put in all kind of units. 165th Depot Brigade, then the Artillery Brigade. Then all of a sudden he was selected to become a rifleman. And he realized that was something important, that they're going to put a rifle in his hand, and he's going to be a rifleman. I have a book that I got that he told me about that they used to teach him how to shoot a man, and that was an experience for him. He'd been shooting squirrels and rabbits and things like that, but they taught him to shoot a man with a M1903 rifle, M1917 rifle, 30 caliber, and that was an experience for him. He said, I'm destined to do something great, and he felt proud that someone thought he was worthy enough to have a rifle and to be taught how to shoot that rifle. Then he was shipped up to New York and joined the unit, the 369th, and sent overseas. And one of the great disappointments that he had was he'd heard stories about Black Jack Pershing and how Black Jack Pershing had led the 10th Cavalry and what wonderful things that they had done with the Buffalo Soldiers throughout the times. And guess what? He looked to Black Jack Pershing to lead him into this battle with that rifle. But all of a sudden, Black Jack Pershing listened to the white officers in the unit and said, look, I'm not going to fight with those guys. I don't trust them. I'm not going to lead those guys. I don't trust them. That really, really hit and sunk deep into his psyche. He says, what kind of man can do me like this? I'm ready to serve my country. I'm ready to defend this country. I heard that the war going on that they're concerned about. It's been going on since 1914. And they're not having much success. And they sent me over here. And I'm here. And they don't want to fight with me. But Black Jack Pershing did a wonderful thing by assigning these guys to the French army. The French army was different. The French people was different. He says, look, we need help. And we welcome you into our fold. So they taught a little French, and they gave him some French guns, and my father was in the machine gun unit. Man, he thought he was something. Now, he's not only shooting a rifle at a man, he can shoot a machine gun at a man and kill a bunch of people. He was definitely proud that he was being able to do this type of thing. And he said, we are ready to go into battle, and they did. In the trenches. And you know, one of the things that they said was, look, them Germans is up there in those trenches in front of us, and we're going to treat them the same as we treated our work back in Mount Sullivan, Texas. When they got ready to sell beef cows to the market, and Tyler was about 12 miles down the road, they would gather those beef cows together and said, okay, I'm going to open this gate, and you're going to start down this road. And once we get them headed down the road in the right direction, they pushed and they pushed and they kept going all day long and didn't stop, didn't turn around until they got to the railroad track in Tyler, Texas, into the pen and into the market. These guys from East Texas, 65 of them, who was in the 369 fighting unit, decided we're going to treat them Germans the same way. Once we get them moving through this Alpine forest, we ain't going to stop. We're not going to rest. We're going to finish this war. For 91 days, they pushed these Germans throughout the Alpine forest. Didn't stop. They slept on the ground, they get up and they eat and they move on. They rotated and they moved on for 91 days. And on the 11th, at 11 o'clock, they said, Castro, we give up. And that was a really wonderful day. Really wonderful day. I wish I had time I'd tell you another story, but I know the time is limited. Well, I'll tell you a story anyway. It was worse than that machine gun. It would kill you by just smelling it, by just looking at it almost. And they were afraid of this gas. Although they've been taught to use gas masks and this type of thing, they were really worried about that gas. But in the middle of this battle, going up to our gun forest, the German threw some gas on us. And somebody hollered gas. And man, that just burnt the whole thing. Everybody said, hey, gas, we gotta go. You call it a rich man movement, but he called it a hasty retreat. So he jumped up and he ran to the rear as fast as he could go. He got tired. He threw away his jacket, he threw away his rifle, he threw away his canteen, he threw away everything. His helmet, and he ran and ran and ran to get away from that gas. Eventually, he got tired. He was so tired, he couldn't go any further. He had to have water. And guess what? There was a big old crater, bump crater hole there. And that bump crater had been filled up with some water. And my dad said, oh man, I believe I'm going to get me a drink of some water. He fell on his knees and crawled into that bump crater. And he got there, he saw a big bunch of stuff, green stuff, on that water. He said, that's no problem. Back up in East Texas, when I went to get some water in the Black Fall Creek, and they had trash on it, I just burst that trash bag and got some water. So I'll just burst this green stuff back and drink me some water. And just as he wanted to get his first big swig, a big old brown boot went under his chin and just flopped him out of the water. He looked up and he saw one of these guys. This time it was a white guy because he was running back too. And this white guy looked down at him and says, comrade, comrade, don't drink that water. That green stuff on there is gas. If you drink that water, you will surely die. My dad looked at this guy and said, look, he called me comrade. He called me comrade. That is a white soldier. And he called me comrade. He said, look, take a swig of water out of my canteen. And then you can go about a mile further and you'll find some clean water on the drink. When he did that, while he took that swig of water, this guy got his canteen and all. And my daddy never got his name. He didn't know who he was. But he has saved his life. He has saved his life. So he went on back and sure enough he found water and got refreshed. And the word came back, look, we didn't come here to be stopped by no gas. And they went back into battle, and then, as you know, they ended the war. Now, I can end the story right there, but I can end it right there. They eventually get back to the United States. The other half of the story, they had this big raid everybody been talking about. My daddy was there in that parade. He said when he was flopped out of that water, that was the happiest day of his life. When an American soldier, an American white soldier, had recognized him as a comrade. That was a great day in his life. Everything was worth it. All the bad stuff that happened to him was forgiven because that was a great day in his life. But then, after the parade and all the good feelings, it was time to come home. So they marched down to the railroad track and everybody got on the train to come back to Texas. And the comrades, white, black, brown, Puerto Ricans, all got on the same train, coming back to Texas because they had won this great war. They had done the things that they wanted to do. And everything was fine until they got to Memphis, Tennessee. They call it the Mason-Dixon line. And they stopped the train, took all the soldiers off, and then they divided them up into units, which meant he was in the black unit, and the white guy was in the white unit. And they reloaded them on the train, and they put the black units in the cars right behind the engines to catch all the smoke that came out of the train. And put the other guys on the tail end of the train where there's no smoke, fresh air, and a comfortable ride. That became the worst day of his life. He came back and he was able to synthesize all of this into doing work for good until he passed away. My daddy taught me and all of his siblings.
I would like to present you with a cigar. You see the 369th Regiment's insignia on it. Thank you for coming and sharing thoughts about your father, and thank you for your father's service. Thank you for your work, sir. Thank you very much.
I hope that you've heard of the Daughters of the American Revolution before. We are a non-profit, non-partisan service organization for women who can show their direct lineage back to someone who fought or gave aid to the Patriots when we gained our independence from England in 1776. When you have to prove your genealogy back to that period, you learn to spend a lot of time in cemeteries. So we have a great love of cemeteries, and we've learned to love all of those family members that we have been able to locate. And so it seemed appropriate that we should be able to recognize some of the African Americans who served our country so well, and with so much sacrifice and so much energy and so much affection for America that we share. I was one of those who didn't know anything about the Harlem Hellfighters before we first started working on this with Bob Ward's committee. And I was fascinated by this history that I didn't know. And so, just like Terry, we were thrilled to begin to learn about these Harlem Hellfighters that are buried here in Austin. And so we wanted to be a part of that to make sure that they were recognized. And so we have planned a very small, sort of intimate, wreath-laying ceremony at Evergreen Cemetery for Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
I wanted to come and tell you about it. It's about 369 Regiment.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm going to speak out here to avoid feedback, so if you can't hear me, just wave a little bit. This is really an honor and a great, wonderful thing for all of us, and certainly for me, to get here to see this. And I want to thank you, Glenn, and Ted Ellis for doing this. And Mr. Harrison, what an amazing story. I'm pretty amazed to be in your presence, and I will raise a toast of very good scotch to your father tonight. I want to thank Rosemary, who asked me, along with Bob Ward, a year ago, when they started the Travis County World War I Centennial Committee, to partner with the Veterans Day Parade for this year, which is all about partly about honoring the 100-year armistice of World War I and the sacrifices made. And I'm really honored to be on the committee with you all, and it's a pleasure to be around people that really care about history. So thanks for having me up here, Glenn, to tell you about an event that is sponsored by the Travis County World War I Centennial Committee. It is an exhibit of World War I items. It's running at the Capitol Visitor Center from now through the first week of January of 2019. The Capitol Visitor Center is the old General Land Office building, which is on the southeast corner of the Capitol grounds. It faces onto 11th Street, and it's free to the public. It's open 7 days a week, and it's small, but I think really nice. And in committee over the months, we were talking about the way in which we would like to express some of our beliefs about who needed to be recognized that perhaps had not been recognized before. And in that spirit, again, even though it's small, we've got women represented in the guise of a woman who was a nurse in World War I in France. We've got a photograph that's a wonderful photograph in color of Henry Johnson, which I think this is the model. I think that photo was the model for this, but it's a beautiful photo, and we've got a color version of it over there at the exhibit, along with the French Croix de Guerre medal that the individual soldiers of the 369th were awarded, and they additionally were awarded a unit award by the French, which is the Croix de Guerre Fourragère, but we don't have that on display over there. But anyway, so the exhibit is 7 days a week, Capitol Visitor Center. It's free to the public, and I hope you all can see it. And I want to thank you again for doing this. This is great.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thanks so much.
Hello, comrades, Americans. Many of you may not have ever heard of the Harlem Hellfighters. They fought in World War I under very Spartan conditions. The Harlem Hellfighters served in the segregated unit that fought in World War I. They spent 191 days on the front lines, longer than any other units to serve in that war. They lost quite a few members, and they fought for a country that had Jim Crow in it, did not really recognize their full rights as human beings for this nation. But they gave their all. And at the end of the day, the Harlem Hellfighters are probably one of the most decorated units for valor in modern warfare history. So these men really gave their heart for the promise of America that we're beginning now to be able to see to come to fruition today. 100 years ago, these men fought bravely, valiantly. And I would like to think that when they fought and they served, the beginnings of what we see out here today was the hope that was in their mind, was the vision that they saw. And it's incredible. It's incredible to see how far we've come from those days to now. But that is the promise of America. And so I urge each and every one of you there to learn about the Harlem Hellfighters. I'm wearing right now another African-American group, Buffalo Soldiers jacket. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. But there are a lot of people that do not know about the Harlem Hellfighters, so I urge you, and as was said to you earlier, there is an exhibit at the Capitol Center by Kevin McKenzie, and we have an exhibit also at City Hall, which was allowed to be there by our wonderful mayor, Mayor Steve Adler. So thank you very much. Oh, I want to just say one thing. I get in a shameless plug. We are having a launch party for the Austin Veterans Arts Festival this November the 15th at the Belmont. And all of the performances there will be by veterans. We are using art to heal veterans. It's not a new thing. The Intrepid Center has been doing it for a long time. But now we're trying to bring it home and bring it to every veteran possible. Thank you once again. Learn about the Harlem Hellfighters. God bless you all.
We're getting ready to wind this up. I want to thank everyone who has come today, who has appeared here. Remember to tell people about
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me, for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I see babies, hear them crying, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I ever know. And I think to myself, ooh, what a wonderful world. Yes. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yes.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountains' majesty.